Welcome to a brand new episode of the Jampack Report today for October the 27th of 2020. Of course, my name is Samuel Adams, and this is a daily gaming news podcast meant to bring you the hottest news you need to know from around the industry. Hosted on YouTube and podcast services around the world 5 days a week, it is your one-stop shop for everything you need to know. So if you enjoy the show and you like what you see, hit that subscribe button and keep coming back for more. But time is ticking down. We are getting very close to the launch of next-gen consoles, and we have a lot of info about some of the games you and I are going to be playing in that first few weeks and months, including all of these new Ubisoft games that are on their way, and the company has unveiled all of the next-gen enhancements coming to its upcoming titles. In total, Ubisoft has outlined the next-gen improvements coming to 8 of its games, including Watch Dogs Legion, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Immortals Fenyx Rising, Far Cry 6, Riders Republic, Just Dance 2021, Rainbow Six Siege, and For Honor in the not-too-distant future. The list originates from a lengthy post on its website, but you will find a more succinct version below. All games are heading to Xbox One, Series X and S, and the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, and upgrades from current-gen consoles to their next-gen counterparts will be free. However, those hoping to upgrade from a PlayStation 4 physical disc will, Ubisoft reminds, need a disc drive on their PlayStation 5. So scrolling down, you do have a couple of shared similarities between the Xbox Series X and S and the PlayStation 5 versions of these games. First and foremost, across the board, it seems like 4K 60 is something that has been achieved. Of course, some of these are not detailed specifically. Just Dance 2021 really has little to no information, and then Watch Dogs Legion also does not have a resolution or frame rate. Read into that as you will. Now, the rest of them are all running at 4K 60 on the PlayStation 5 and the Series X, which means these games are very well optimized. On top of that, for the games that support HDR, it does seem like it is going to be something that is shared across all of the platforms that are, of course, able to accomplish that. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that you do have Tempest 3D audio on the PlayStation 5, and then occasionally you will see Dolby Atmos and spatial audio technology on the Xbox Series X. This is something that I think you'll see emerging on the next-gen consoles because this is the closest, in my opinion, that two consoles have been to each other in terms of capability. But a lot of what they are able to do might just have a different name on the other platform. So for instance, with this audio technology, the Tempest 3D audio engine is something designed entirely for the PlayStation 5. Dolby Atmos is similar in a lot of ways because it is just this very industry standard kind of 3D audio technology. And so with that being taken into account, the experience you are going to be having is going to be relatively similar across all of these consoles. So you'll see that a couple of times here and there. One thing that I find very interesting is that not every game is supporting the DualSense's features. And by DualSense's features, I do mean stuff like Watch Dogs Legion supporting adaptive trigger support here. Then on top of that, you have on Immortals Fenyx Rising, you have PlayStation 5 DualSense haptic feedback, which is supposed to be much more in-depth than what you had on the DualShock 4. And so whenever you look at this, that brings a little bit of worry to my mind that these features of the DualSense may not be utilized deep into the console generation. Because if you look at something like the the DualShock 4 touchpad, it has utility from time to time, but ultimately, even on these big first-party games that come out late in the generation, you don't really see much of it being used at all. In fact, it traditionally just becomes an extra set of face buttons, if we're being completely honest with each other. And so, will that be something that ends up happening with the adaptive triggers? It very well could be. On top of that, will you see the abandonment of haptic feedback? Probably not, because haptic feedback is something that's been around since the PlayStation 2, but I do fear that the DualSense controller may not be utilized to its fullest potential after this launch cycle, where developers are trying to bring out these new experiences and developers are trying to win you over one way or the other. So, outside of that, we're looking at this list of Ubisoft titles that are coming out. Of course, Rainbow Six Siege running at 120 FPS at 4K on every console. That's kind of wild. I doubt that's true for the Series S, but I do think it's going to hit 120 FPS. There's a lot to look forward to here, and I think that in a console launch cycle where first-party titles are few and far between, these third-party games are going to be incredibly important, even those that are a few years old at this point. Rainbow Six Siege getting next-gen upgrades is going to be a very big deal. On top of that, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is, in a way, kind of carrying this entire launch cycle. So we will see exactly how fans react to these new enhancements, but lots of good stuff coming from the team over at Ubisoft. Now, of course, like I said, older games are probably going to be carrying the next-gen launch, and God of War has been confirmed to run at 60 FPS and will support PlayStation 5 saved games on the PlayStation 5. If you decide to boot up God of War on your PlayStation 5 from November the 12th, you will be able to select a favorite performance option in the game's menu. This will allow you to boost the game up to 60 FPS. Though this option is available on PS4 Pro, we imagine the PlayStation 5 version will be more stable and consistently operate at around 60 FPS. The developer has not made it clear if the resolution will go beyond 1080p if you choose this option though. Additionally, you'll be able to pick up from where you left off on PS4 thanks to save transfers. The developer has not outlined exactly how this will work just yet, but it's nice to know you will be able to carry on from where you left off, or even start a nice New Game Plus adventure if you are keen to ogle the game on the next-gen tech. So, a little bit concerned here because they didn't define a resolution. I would assume this is 4K 60 FPS. That seems to be the industry standard for next-gen consoles, because of course on the PlayStation 4 Pro you do have the option between 4K 30 where you do have a very high resolution God of War, or you have 1080p 60 where everything is very fluid and fast. Now thankfully, sort of, I guess, depending on how you look at it. Whenever I play God of War, I was running a 1080p monitor, so I was able to choose that performance mode, and I got that 60 FPS experience, and it is superb. So I'm hoping that this is going to be 4K 60 FPS. I would assume that's what it's going to be, but it is nice to know that your saves will transfer over, because God of War is one of the best games of this generation, and I think I might go so far as to say it is probably my favorite game of the generation. Very, very good title. Now, another big launch game has been delayed into February 2021 on the PlayStation 5. It is Destruction AllStars. Of course, this is just pushed a few weeks before the launch of the console. The action racing game was due out alongside the PlayStation 5 on the 12th of November, priced at £70, or of course around 70 bones, but now it will launch sometime in February 2021, when it will be included for 2 months in PlayStation Plus, Sony's director of product development Pete Smith said in a post on the PlayStation blog. Destruction AllStars is a multiplayer game that's at its best when you're competing with gamers online from all around the world, Smith said. We want as many people as possible to experience the mayhem on PlayStation 5, and what better way to do that than provide the game to our PlayStation Plus members. Next week, we'll return with a brand new trailer and more details on the game, so you'll know exactly what to expect when you download it in February. This may be disappointing news for some of you who are looking to play the game at launch, but we hope you understand the decision. Pre-orders will be refunded, Smith added. Destruction AllStars is a sort of Rocket League without the ball experience, with a splash of Destruction Derby thrown in. There is vehicle-based combat in arenas set across the globe. It's the work of Liverpool-based studio Lucid Games, which was formed out of the ashes of Metropolis Street Racer, Project Gotham Racing, and Blur developer Bizarre Creations. Lucid is perhaps best known for developing Geometry Wars 3 Dimensions, but the team behind Destruction AllStars has many of the key people who worked on Wipeout before Sony shut its developer Sony Liverpool down in August 2012. So, this is probably the best move that Sony could have possibly made with this game. It just doesn't look great. It is one of those launch titles that you know it's going to be a launch title and you know exactly how it is going to be received, and it's going to be fine. It would have been fine for the launch period, but ultimately it was $70. That's a lot of money. And so whenever you compare spending $70 on something like a Demon's Souls remake to something like Destruction AllStars, it just feels like you're not getting your money's worth. And on top of that, it is a multiplayer-centric approach. So if you have everybody this year playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, then you're going to have just a small handful of people playing Destruction Derby. And so ultimately, or I should say Destruction AllStars if you want to get specific about it, but you understand the point that I'm making. It wouldn't have been a fulfilling experience, and the game probably would have flopped just a couple of weeks after launch. And so to have this as a PlayStation Plus benefit, they're trying to replicate the success of Rocket League. Will it work? I doubt it. Rocket League is, at its core, a great game. It's a great, unique, good game. And so whenever you have something like Destruction AllStars, it doesn't have that same kind of finesse. It doesn't have that same kind of vibe for me. But they are trying to do what they did with Rocket League and kind of push it to success by giving it away for free and showing people what it is capable of. Who knows? It could be a phenomenal game. We'll have to see what happens with it. But do not look forward to it around the launch of the PlayStation 5. Now here's a bummer and a shocker for me. Halo 5 is not getting a dedicated Xbox Series X upgrade. Over on the Halo Waypoint side, Halo developer 343 has stated that Halo 5 will not be getting the same Xbox Series X and S upgrades that its massive sibling title, Halo the Master Chief Collection, will be getting. Hello, the Master Chief Collection. But last week, Microsoft confirmed that the Master Chief Collection will come to Xbox Series X and S with the ability to run at 4K on the Series X and 1080p on the Series S, with both consoles running the game at an eye-watering 120 FPS. The same, though, cannot be said for the most recent entry in the Halo franchise, Halo 5. Quote, after we announced the enhancements that MCC would be getting on the Xbox Series X and S, we did see questions rolling in about how Halo 5 would play on the new consoles, says community manager John Jusnick of 343 Industries. While Halo 5 is not getting the same optimizations for Series X and Series S as MCC, owners of the next-gen hardware are still going to see the benefits of faster loading times and consistently higher resolution gameplay. That means you can expect to see the game get the same sort of upgrade that many other Xbox One games will get on the hardware thanks to the Series X and S architecture. The news is not too bad though. The Master Chief Collection appears to be where most Halo players these days are gravitating to, and it has a lot more content than Halo 5 Guardians to enjoy. And if you're excited about the more modern side of Halo, at least you can take comfort in the rumors that 343 Industries may be shipping Halo Infinite's multiplayer and single-player game modes separately. I don't know why I would take comfort in that. VG 24/7 don't really like that. But that's beside the point. We talked about that earlier in the month. Halo 5 is not getting a dedicated Series X upgrade. It blows my mind how much Microsoft doesn't want to admit this game happened. It's not great, Halo 5 is not a gorgeous, mind-blowing game, but it's still a Halo game, and it's still a good Halo game at that. The shooting's pretty tight, the multiplayer's okay, it's not quite that same feel of Halo 3, 4, 2, etc., but it is still a fine game. And so it would be nice to see them support the game in the same way that they are supporting the Master Chief Collection. But again, as the article points out, I do understand the majority of players are on the Master Chief Collection, including me. I haven't played Halo 5 in a good long while. But it seems like you're just kind of leaving this redheaded stepchild out to die. And I don't know. It would be nice to see the entire Halo collection get the attention it deserves, including the one that did not do that well. So, with that being said, I'm still very much so looking forward to Halo Infinite, but I would have loved to see Halo 5 getting at least a couple of upgrades here and there, because people are going to be wanting to go back and play it, and maybe that's part of the strategy here. Without a free upgrade, then they don't feel compelled to go back and play it, and they're trying to help people forget that it really even happened. Now, speaking of next-gen games, no ray tracing for Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition is going to be on the Xbox Series S. Capcom has revealed that ray tracing support, one of the biggest new features in Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition, will not be on Microsoft's cheaper next-gen console. Outside of that, the rest of the game's new features like Playable Virgil, Legendary Dark Knight difficulty, and reduced load times are all there, and the game will also offer a 120 FPS mode on the Series X and S, as well as obviously on the PlayStation 5. Capcom did not explain why ray tracing is going to be missing on the Series S, electing to simply announce the news on Twitter. It is worth keeping in mind, however, that ray tracing will arrive on Xbox platforms in a future update, unlike PS5 where it will be available at launch. The news is not particularly surprising, as much as Microsoft likes to imagine the difference in power will only be used to drop resolution on Series S. Not every developer may see it that way. More broadly, it will be interesting to see how other games treat Series S going forward, and whether Microsoft's vision for the split is going to hold. Indeed, many PCs out there are capable of running ray-traced visuals just fine, but Capcom still decided not to bring the feature to PC, so there could be more to that decision than simple performance worries. Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition releases November the 10th, and of course you can find everything you need to know on the pre-order page. But this seems to be a trend that is growing. It feels strange to me, and again, this is just a feeling, that we are already pushing the limits of what is possible on the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, and on top of that, the Xbox Series S. And I think that's probably why you aren't going to be able to see this ray tracing support on the cheaper next-gen console. And I think that as time goes on and developers learn more about the architecture of these consoles and they learn how to develop on these consoles, that you might be able to see more power squeezed out of them, and you might be able to see more advancements and more graphical fidelity, higher frame rates, etc. But for right now, it seems like a lot of the potential for these next-gen consoles is being tapped right from the get-go, and that's not really something we saw with the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. So we'll see if my hunch is right. I hope that I'm not, and I very well could not be. But if you are looking forward to Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition and you want that ray tracing, looks like a next-gen console that is on the more pricey side is going to be your best friend. Or you could just play mobile games on Facebook, right? Facebook is rolling out a free cloud gaming service. Facebook is the latest Silicon Valley juggernaut to jump into video game streaming. Not the kind you watch, the company already has a Twitch and YouTube gaming competitor, but the sort you can play over an internet connection. Facebook is not targeting Stadia, xCloud, Luna, or GeForce Now, not at first anyway. Instead of console and PC titles, the company is offering smaller free-to-play games. These include Asphalt 9 Legends, PGA Tour Golf Shootout, Solitaire Arthur's Tale, and Mobile Legends Adventure, an idle RPG that progresses even when you're not actively playing. More games will be added over time, starting with Red Bull's Dirt Bike Unchained in the coming weeks. You'll find these titles in the gaming section of Facebook. That's the one that also contains its Twitch rival. The company has emphasized that it's not launching a standalone service, and because it's part of the standard Facebook service, will be completely free to access unless you want to spend money inside the individual games. In addition, Facebook will be introducing cloud playable ads in the newsfeed. These tiny demos will target people who rarely open the gaming tab or have forgotten that Facebook also offers playable games. Facebook says the ads will draw from a game's native code and therefore be simple for developers to tweak. Cloud gaming will be limited to 2 platforms, Android and the web. Apple originally barred game streaming services on iOS, much to the industry's annoyance, and the company changed its App Store review guidelines last month, allowing streamable games, provided every title is submitted separately for review, and catalog apps can help players find them. For now, Facebook's approach does not seem to be compatible with these guidelines. Quote, even with Apple's new cloud games policy, we just don't know if launching on the App Store is a viable path, Jason Rubin, VP of Play at Facebook, explained in a blog post. The company might use the browser as a workaround, but there's no word on how or when that might happen. Of course, they go on to talk more about the back end of why Facebook gaming is the way that it is and what it's shooting to do, but ultimately this is going to be a new free cloud gaming service similar to what we saw with the Facebook of yesteryear, where whenever I think about Facebook in circa 2008, I believe, you get to see stuff like Farmville and you see all these little smaller games popping up. Again, these are not going to be big, groundbreaking games. These are not going to be influential, money makers. These are going to be the smaller games that you play whenever you are killing time, whether you're laying on your couch, whether you're waiting in the lunchroom, whatever it might be. These are going to be the mobile games that your grandma plays. These are going to be the quick little small games that your brother is playing on his ride to school. That's what they're shooting for here. Now, of course, Facebook has been in the news recently for a lot of negative Oculus Rift publicity. On top of that, Facebook gaming has been growing at a pretty rapid pace, so they're doing something right with that. But ultimately, this is just one more foray into the world of gaming that you can take advantage of if you do want to dig into it. Certainly interesting to say the least to see Facebook going hard on the gaming features that they have been rolling out frequently. But to round out today's show, Crash Bandicoot is landing on Android and iOS devices in spring of 2021. Sorta kinda. When King revealed that it's working on a Crash Bandicoot game for mobile in July, it did not have a release date for the title yet. Now, the dev behind the game and Candy Crush has announced that Crash Bandicoot on the Run will be available for Android and iOS devices in spring of 2021. The game is an endless runner, which will also have weapons crafting and base building on the go. It features characters aside from Crash that fans already know to love, and of course, sometimes hate, including Coco, the goofy-looking fake Crash, and our hero's nemesis, Neo Cortex. You will have to defeat Neo Cortex in the lab, which is one of the franchise's most notoriously difficult levels. If you are an iOS user, you can also now pre-register for the game on the App Store. King opened pre-registrations for Android back in July as well, so you can head over to Google Play if you have not done that yet. By signing up, you will get a notification when the game becomes available for download and a mobile exclusive Blue Hyena skin from Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled on launch day. So there you have it if you do want to dive into the Crash Bandicoot Endless Runner coming to a phone or tablet near you. But that rounds out today's episode of the Jampack Report. If you enjoyed today's show, drop me a like down below and let me know what stories caught your eye. I would love to hear what you have to say about Ubisoft's big next-gen enhancements and which console is catching your eye more. Leave it in the comment section down below. But until next time, you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon, and peace.